Go to bed, you scum!
Trick question, Lemmy is God.
Hello, my lovelies. How are you and how are things? Oh, really? Well, I know you'll kick ass and take names, no worries. So this fine evening, I'm going to be reviewing the 1998 film Lethal Weapon 4. If you're curious what my thoughts are on the first and second movies, check back in my videos. I reviewed them a few years ago. I'm reviewing the fourth movie before the third movie for reasons that I'll get into a little bit later. Anyways, this movie is definitely action-packed as we follow the newly dubbed Captain Martin Riggs and Captain Roger Murtaugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Captain Riggs.
Captain Murtaugh.
As they stumble onto a Chinese immigrant smuggling ring. Explosions, gunfire, and fights ensue. All this culminates in what I consider to be the third best in the Lethal Weapon franchise. Let's get to the cast. There's the Aussie, Mel Gibson.
Gunfights, explosions, sharks, the usual.
Who plays Martin Riggs. Danny Glover as Roger Murtaugh.
Rick, just wait a friggin' minute.
We've got the badass legend himself, Joe Pesci.
Hey, I didn't call you any names, you fuckface! Don't start that!
He plays a guy named Leo Getz.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's me, Leo Getz. Whatever you need, Leo Getz. You get it?
Chris Rock plays Detective Lee Butters.
Hey, gangbangers want to kill each other? No problem. You, me, one of us gets shot. Hey, occupational hazard.
Renee Russo plays Lorna Cole.
I'll tell you what it is. It's pregnancy destroying my brain cells. I can't believe I said.
And the lightning fast Jet Li.
In Hong Kong, you would be dead.
As Wah Sing Koo. Now, before I get on to my rating, I'd like to introduce a longtime friend of this channel and a champion of my content, Dan. He's the mastermind behind the phenomenal channels Dive in Canada and Hot Sauce Done Quick. He's got a few words that he wants to share about Lethal Weapon 4's final fight scene.
The final fight scene of Lethal Weapon 4, of the entire Lethal Weapon series in fact, is easily one of the best scenes Richard Donner ever put on cellulose. I'm here to argue that not only is it the best scene of the series, but it may be one of the best fight scenes ever filmed. I know there's no way for it to live up to that intro, but I'm being purposefully hyperbolic. Indulge me for a short rant. I'll set the scene. The characters find themselves on a recessed dock below a warehouse. A dilapidated shack barely stands to one side. Piers and scattered pieces of rebar, most likely for a permanently delayed rebuild, are strewn about haphazardly. The end of the dock is crumbling, giving way to the might of the Los Angeles River. Jet Li, in his very first American production, is standing at the very edge of the broken structure, cradling his dying on-screen brother in his arms. He was shot from the very last bullet from Murtaugh's gun, taking a hit for Jet Li's Wah Sing Koo. Similarly, Chris Rock, Officer Butters' character, has taken a similar shot to save his future father-in-law's life only a few minutes earlier. The stakes have been set. As the two heroes go down the ramp, they stop. Neither of them have ammunition, and they have Koo trapped. The only way out is to get through them, unless he wants to brave the water. Koo's brother takes his last breath as Riggs and Murtaugh start to riff. The music slowly fades and gives way to the sound of driving rain. Both of the captains go back and forth about what they should do. Clearly, Koo is no longer an immediate threat. He isn't approaching them, he isn't trying to run, he just wants to be there for his brother's last moments. Murtaugh lays out how far both protagonists have come. Riggs went from a suicidal widower with an adrenaline addiction and a penchant for violence to a loving partner who is about to be a father and has a chance to settle down. Murtaugh is about to be a grandfather and is finally eyeing that retirement he's been complaining about for the past 4 fucking movies, thanks to his wife's authorship. Both are truly too old for this shit. Despite Riggs' clear body language showing his disagreement about breaking off the pursuit, he agrees with Murtaugh, and the two start making their way back. But this wouldn't be a Lethal Weapon if Riggs was convinced that easily. For every film in the franchise, Riggs pulls Murtaugh along in this parent-child relationship. He is constantly getting the people he loves in danger, and Murtaugh is forced to get him out. But they keep coming back together and collaborating, as if Riggs is Murtaugh's proof that he still has some fight left into him. Riggs knows he has convinced Murtaugh to do more risky things than fight one dude, yet this seems like a request too far. Much earlier in the film, Ku takes Riggs' Beretta 92 apart in front of him, and he spends more than just a few minutes going on and on about it. It clearly got under his skin to be taken so apart, much like his service pistol, by this young martial artist, and he wants another shot, mano a mano. As he explains his curiosity about Ku's gun disassembly techniques, you can see his eyes dart to the now standing foe at the end of the dock. Riggs' morbid wonderment makes way for Murtaugh's contrasting parental exhaustion. He knows he can't stop Riggs from fighting this guy, and he knows that Riggs is too old to beat him. But he can't just leave him to possibly die alone. To leave a child without a father. Riggs asks, how did he do that? Staring at his figurative guardian. None of the men on that dock move or say anything, as internally, Murtaugh is weighing the options. Then, as if getting approval from your dad to roughhouse with your sibling, Murtaugh gives a frustrated,
Yeah? Okay. Let's go ask you.
Let me stop there before we get into the real blood and guts. I love everyone's performance here, and I feel like it's elevated by Donner's ability to compartmentalize scenes to the point where they can be watched out of context and still know exactly what roles and motivations these characters have. You can see this constantly in the previous 3 installments, from every Leo Getz ramble to shenanigans with the LAPD.
You know, I worked Psycho Ward, Riggs. You're never gonna get out of it.
Give it up, babe.
Pay up.
$1 minute, 15 seconds.
To the well-blocked fight scenes that litter the franchise. By the 4th film, these characters are well-trodden cliches, and it totally works to the structure that Donner sets. This scene is no exception. Watched out of context, it has everything that's needed for a good short film. It has clear motivators, the stakes are heightened, the tension is the oncoming climax, and I believe that the trepidations are communicated prior to everything popping off. As our protagonists start their approach towards Ku, a subtle position switch from Riggs and Murtaugh enforces that parent-child dynamic. Riggs has a bad right shoulder that's prone to dislocation. He tries to get in front of Murtaugh, acting as a shield for the aging captain from the fight he knows he just pulled him into. But Murtaugh quickly positions himself on Riggs' right, the side he knows will be the weakest, in a supportive gesture, as if to say, I don't like what you're about to do, but I have to at least help you present your best side towards it. Then, after a short stare down, Riggs makes the first move, and surprisingly, not an offensive one. He pushes Murtaugh out of the way before telegraphing a hook. He gets kicked in his face for his efforts before both men grab Ku from a jumping roundhouse and toss him to the ground. The rest of the fight scene goes exactly as predicted. Ku adeptly takes the pairing apart, separating them and beating them down piecemeal. He takes some haymakers and a pipe to the back, but he always seems to have the upper hand. Murtaugh ends up unconscious with his head through the shack's window, and as predicted, Riggs' right shoulder is dislocated in short order once he is alone. He just isn't fast enough to scrap with the young guys anymore. He puts his shoulder back and goes on the offensive, but Ku grabs his trachea. Riggs desperately claws at hair and eyes to get his opponent to break grip, but nothing works. All he can do now is watch his vision slowly fade to black. But this is a feel-good Donner film, so Murtaugh recovers and impales the bad guy with a cut piece of rebar. I don't really like this turn, but it's not out of place for the franchise that has some very creative kills. Riggs uses the impalement to his advantage. I love the long shot of him lifting Ku up by the rebar. It makes my insides wince every single time. The pair are betrayed by the crumbling dock as it gives way under their combined weight. The two combatants sink into the river, fighting each other all the way down. Ku knows this is it, and drags his enemy into a nearby sunken car. Again, since this is a Donner movie, the car has a loaded AK-47 in it. Trust me, it makes sense. They established the car, the rifle, and its location at the end of the warehouse shootout just prior to this. But even without context, do you know how many cars/guns are probably at the bottom of the LA River? That's good enough for me to suspend my disbelief. Riggs unloads the seemingly full magazine into Ku, and with that, the fight is over. But the raison d'etre still hangs over the heads of the audience. As Riggs surfaces, he calls for Murtaugh as if to say, "Hey, Dad, I'm fine. Are you?" The busted piece of dock he's hanging off finally collapses, sending him back from whence he came, pinning him underwater. Murtaugh wakes up seconds later screaming for Riggs, knowing, but hoping, that the worst case scenario hasn't come to pass. The possibility
Mantlings. Out of 10. 8 Beretta dismantlings out of 10. I'd like to thank you for watching and commenting. Never forget, this is a safe place, a happy place, a werewolf place. Later.